Hey,
My mic is muted. So. Just the two of us today, so far.
yeah, I'm gonna put it into come to the meeting. Put it into Slack.
You have a new keyboard, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can hear that.
that's mechanical, and I have a new microphone too, and it sits on the desk right next to the keyboard, so you just hear that.
Yeah.
A ton of that. I have to get this onto an arm, so it's not on the desk.
Just like Brian has.
Yeah. What are we talking about
Hey,
today?
Marwan.
Hey,
Hey
Marlon.
guys, long time.
Yeah. How you doing?
Not bad.
Good. I was just looking at the schedule. Two of the four things are just the results of votes, so I think we can get to the real things pretty quick.
Yep.
And I guess we should start too, because yeah,
Maybe not.
Rob can't come. Hey, Beneath. I'm gonna see if Manu can come real quick. All right. Yeah, I'll just get started. So, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. Manu, oh, yeah, he'll be here, I think. So we had two votes between last week and this week. And the first one was issue number 416. That was, I created that. Actually, I renamed it to something else to reflect that we're doing a vote after last week's meeting. There were two options. It was about whether the proxy should redirect immediately to Olympus or it should download from Olympus, store, and then return to the client. So it was close. One of the votes was, or there were four votes for proxy always redirecting to Olympus and never storing in its cache for public modules, but private modules would always still be cached. We had three votes for making the proxy redirect to Olympus and fill its cache in the background for public modules. And the four votes thing won, obviously, and this is for the MVP. I think that was in the OP. Yeah. So for the MVP, we decided that we're going to always redirect to Olympus from the proxy, and we're never going to store in the proxy cache for public modules. So I will write that right now so we don't forget. We decided. So you guys like the noise of my new mechanical keyboard?
I was wondering something was different.
Yeah. We decided on this.
And also just to note that you could still cache all the public modules in the proxy if you just don't have a filter.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's still possible, obviously, just the default behavior.
And still cache everything in the proxy, everything from Olympus in the proxy if you don't have a filter. Okay, cool. Do we have other things, questions, anything like that on this issue? Okay. All right, so 423, this was another one from last week. It was about removing RDBMS. And there was also another one in this about how should the registry do redirects to content distribution networks. So the first vote was at, where was the first vote? It was at this link. Wait. This link. I'll put it into the Zoom chat. This one was tough because there was 2 votes in a thread of a sea of other discussions. So that was the vote for doing the like HTML meta tag redirects. And this was the other option was using HTTP 301 redirects. And this one was a landslide. It was 5 votes to 0 for doing 301 redirects. And another part of that is to update the download protocol specification to standardize that 301 redirects are supported. Because right now they are supported in the Go tool just by virtue of using the net HTTP library. But we would like to call it out specifically so that any other implementations or future changes or anything like that will support 301s as well. So I'm going to write real quick that down as well. Vote for redirects. Okay, and then the second vote was down a little bit more. Okay, so here is the link for keeping RDBMSing, for keeping database support, SQL database support. And here's the one for removing it. This was 3-1 for removing RDBMS from the proxy. And that's cool to me. We get to delete a lot of code. So I think that one was fairly straightforward as well. And I'm going to rate that real quick. RDBMS. All right, that's all the administrative stuff for me. I will go out and create specific issues for all 3 of these votes after this. Yeah, I'm done. Mikhail, go ahead. You've got redirect to Olympus details.
Yeah, this is basically about sync async. So yeah, it's issue, I think, 474. I'll just check up real quick. Yeah, it's 474. And we were talking about how proxy should behave in order to redirect to Olympus if it should pull modules synchronously or asynchronously. I got there 2 ideas. One is for async, and for sync, I was worried about scalability. The main point for async is that we can schedule workload on workers like pretty deterministic. We can say that 5 jobs will consume this amount of memory and this amount of CPU and blah, blah, blah. But with sync, we need to be more careful about, like, it will consume more resources per request. So we need to be careful about that, and we need to have maybe some dynamic scaling. So I just wanted to know your opinions on that.
I have a question.
Yep.
Would this be for when the module?
No, for MVP.
So what?
Come again?
So I was saying, from the vote, we decided that we were always just going to redirect, but there was that case where if the module filter was completely empty, then there was the possibility that we would cache. So would this be for that case?
I'm gonna interrupt. What you just said, Aaron, was if we have the filter off, we never go to Olympus. It always goes to go get. So it wouldn't be for that case.
Yep.
Maybe I got that backwards.
But it's the same question. I have the same question for Michael. So it's like, if we decided to just redirect, do we even need to do any async filling or sync filling? Because we're never going to do any filling from Olympus.
And that's the question, if this is desirable. The other thing maybe can be that Olympus is not reachable from your client because of firewall or something, but Olympus is reachable from proxy. In this case, I think it would be good to have it cached.
So for the vote, we talked about just doing redirects for MVP. So maybe this is maybe we should talk about this for like MVP +1.
Yep, yeah, definitely.
If everyone's cool with it, I would like to still discuss it right now. But just to put it in context for MVP +1, whatever that's V1.1 or whatever it's called. So go ahead.
No, I said, yeah, I'm totally okay with that as long as for MVP, we know that we're not doing any of this. And for post MVP, we could totally try to discuss it starting now, which is great.
Cool. So personal opinion from me, I think I wrote it somewhere too. When we talked about the proxy, like figuring out if we could tell the Go tool to do a go get on a public repo while the proxy does the download in the background, it essentially does the go get on the server in the background. We simplified there to just be like, we're going to just do it synchronously and then return to the client. I feel like this is a really similar case, and we should just follow suit.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's it's also a performance game. You don't need to double the time. And so you just redirect command go to get something, and then you asynchronously get the same thing. Then command go doesn't have to wait for the proxy to download the whole thing to storage, then stream it back again. Right now, that's what we do for our download protocol, just for correctness and MVP. But since this is post MVP, it's a good thing to do.
So you're saying async, I'm saying sync, so we have 1-to-1. Who else thinks?
Oh, I thought you said async. I thought you said async.
No, I was saying sync.
Okay, so what you're saying is you want to download the whole thing to the proxy, then stream it.
Yeah, just like we do for proxy only go gets.
Do you see like a benefit for that?
Just simplicity.
Okay. No, that makes sense. I mean, and then you ensure that there is a single flow to follow.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem against it, but I think, and plus it's only, like we said, it's only the first time that it's slow. So it's always going to be faster after that.
So we're deadlocked at 1-to-1. What do other people think?
Also with sync, I think we need to come up with a solution for syncing different Go routines. Like, I think you mentioned this, Aaron, in some thread. Like,
yeah, I think we have an issue that Chad created for it.
Yeah, I think is that the single flight thing that I've signed up for?
Oh, I didn't know you signed up for it, but I know it's an issue in there somewhere.
Yeah, is this one?
Yeah. So
is it
this
done yet, Marwan?
Well, so it's going to be a couple phases. What the first one is just the proxy, and I think we were going to get into that topic because Michael said it's for the next topic, so we can get into that in a second. But for for that type of stuff, yeah, for sync, that's a potentially, whether it's sync or async, we kind of need to do that, right? Because if you have multiple Go routines asking for the same module, right? We kind of need, whether it's sync or async, we kind of need to make sure, all right, one of you guys is already caching it, and so we don't need to cache it anymore. If the worker, if we had an async worker fire off multiple times, it still needs to do some sort of single flighting. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that issue is still needed, whether it's sync or async.
With async, we can have maybe some kind of duplication in front of the worker, but yeah.
Yeah,
the complication.
We still have to worry about it in either. Yep. And so I'm indifferent, by the way, when it comes to sync versus async. So it's not one against one. I think both are fine. I like the performance boost, but yeah.
Other opinions? Manu, Vineeth, Rohan, anybody? I'll put this up for a vote on a GitHub issue so that people can have the week. Let me take that as a note. This is issue number
474.
474.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Should we move on, or do we have more on Olympus redirects and proxy fills?
I think that's all.
Okay. Oh, Manu, what can we do to help you understand? This is a great place for that. Oh, cool. Okay. How about this? I will write well, you tell me if this would help. If I make a diagram, like a simplified, because we have an extensive diagram right now of how the architecture works. But if I make a simplified diagram and put it on in the docs, that just shows like how these two pieces work together. Do you think that would help you? Cool. I'll do that. I'll put up an issue for it, and I might be able to get to it today, but if not, anyone else can take it too. I'm just going to call it an end-to-end doc. All right.
I was about to do that, but I had many P1s at work. So.
Yeah, same. Do you know, is there an issue for it, Michal?
I don't think so.
Okay. I'll put the issue up, and then, yeah, we can organize from there. We can deduplicate from there using a check and set algorithm.
Yeah.
Okay. So proxy scalability. Take it away.
Yeah, this is about how proxy should be scaled. If it will be scaled one-on-one with DB, or if multiple instances will share the DB. And this is related to the thing we discussed like a minute ago with this synchronization between Go routines and between requests. So you don't end up downloading one module multiple times.
Right.
So there would be two strategies. One is one-on-one, which would require a simple synchronization, which can be done like by us in our code base. Another one would need to be done across instances, something like console or Zookeeper or something like that.
Can I jump in for a thing, because I've been looking into that? So this is, I think, proxy. So we're talking about the proxy right now.
Yep.
Olympus, on the other hand, is a little bit different. So let's just talk about the proxy, then I'll move on to Olympus, and then obviously I want to hear everybody else's opinion. And then again, it's also proxy, Olympus, MVP versus after MVP.
Yeah, I'm talking mostly about after. Yeah.
Okay, for after, yeah, we could totally discuss it. For MVP, I think we should definitely keep the proxy a single instance with a single storage, because it's much simpler, A, and B, it's most likely going to work for most people, because proxy is meant to be run for private companies. By private, I mean it's like not public for everyone to use, so it's only going to be a handful of people using it. So I don't think there's going to be a scalability problem there for the proxy. Even after MVP, I don't think we should have multiple DBs per instance, because if you use something like cloud storage or whatever cloud provider blob storage you have, I believe it's just scaled for you. So you don't need to handle having multiple cloud storage services. If you just have one, it should be able to just scale. If we have an actual, and so even if you maybe choose something like, I don't know, CockroachDB or something, like there are databases that are scaled by themselves. And so you don't have to manage that scaling. So I think for the proxy and even for Olympus potentially, we don't need to have multiple DBs talking to each other. I could be wrong, of course. I mean, I'd like to hear other people's opinions, but that's just the one versus one. As for after, and that doesn't mean we don't have to have replicas. I just saw Manu's comment. We could totally have replicas for the actual servers. So obviously the proxy and Olympus, even for MVP, they can be easily multiple instances on Kubernetes and stuff. The cloud storage is probably what's going to determine the synchronization of getting and setting, and because it will handle that for you as far as I know. As for Olympus and single flight, the thing with Olympus is that it's by default a distributed system, because it feels like Olympus as MVP, it's going to have to be distributed, because the whole architecture of it to begin with is a distributed system across different clouds. So I don't mind us for the Olympus part immediately working on the distributed stuff. I've been looking at etcd for single flight for that part. It has distributed locking, and it also has Kubernetes Helm charts or something. I haven't looked too much into that, but I think it should be fairly doable to have single flight for synchronization in Olympus. But for MVP, we don't even have to worry about Olympus for now, because we're kind of just working on the proxy. So that was a lot of information. But that's kind of basically everything. I don't know if I need to kind of dig deeper or not.
I wanted to follow up on the MVP point. The proxy MVP will almost certainly happen before the Olympus MVP. But from a release perspective, they certainly can be separated, probably will be. That's all I wanted to.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think like if we're trying to for my own selfishness is that I'm really trying to have the proxy like deployed for my work project, and I want to see how it works out. And it's pretty much with, like, as of now, it's totally doable. So I'm hoping to do it very soon. So I kind of, that's for, at least for my use case, again, like very selfishly speaking, the proxy as even a single instance, one replica with one database in the back is kind of good enough to try out for all of us to just say like, okay, how is this working from a CI/CD perspective, downloading vendor, and all of that. And then we could definitely start talking about distributed locking afterwards, because that's just more fun.
Hey, as a side note, would you be able to publish or do a screencast or anything about how you got your setup up and running?
Yes, once I actually do get it up and running.
I would love that. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, for sure. And we still need, at least for one single instance, we still need some sort of single flight package to make sure that things are being synchronized. You don't have to download, you don't have to go get the module a bunch of times. So we're still going to have some cool concurrency synchronization, even for MVP. So that's the first thing that I'll probably do for this whole topic.
So just to organize, there were a few, I think there were 3 points I heard in there. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just going to list them. I heard, should we support multiple replicas of a proxy? Should the proxy support multiple databases, like something like federating data or sharding data? And then the third one was deduplicating cache fill requests across if someone runs more than one instance of a proxy. Is that everything?
I'm very impressed that you actually understood everything I said. I couldn't have repeated that myself.
I wrote it down, so that helped.
Great. Yeah, so for these 3 things, I would say supporting replicas should be fairly easy. Whether it's a yes or no, I kind of don't have a problem with that yet, but I think for MVP, we could stick to 1 replica.
Yeah, definitely.
The second one, I think for MVP, we should definitely stick to 1 database. And I would bet even for after MVP, we can pretty much stick with 1 database because scalability will be handled by the cloud provider. And for the third one, for single flight, we have multiple phases, one for non-distributed and the second for distributed. But that's just me, so I'd love to hear what other guys, people think.
I'm writing down some more notes on what you said.
Mikhail, does that make sense? Do you have I mean,
yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense, definitely. And Vinith is asking, what is MVP? MVP is most minimal viable product? Okay, so it's like minimal working version of proxy with minimum number of features. Does it make sense? Cool.
I pretty much agree with you, Marwan. I don't have anything, nothing in my mind is different than what you said. Oh, and then Manu, that to your question, I think that for the MVP, and I almost think like forever, the proxy, the one that that companies will run like kind of internally, I don't think we should ever really dive into supporting like data sharding or federation. So I think that what you said is right on. Like if they use a database that just scales the data for them, like CockroachDB or a cloud storage system, we should probably recommend that. And if they're using like a local MongoDB instance, then we can kind of just say, I think at least we can just say in our docs, like scaling Mongo or doing data federation in Mongo is kind of outside the scope of the proxy. We don't really dive into that much. So the thing, Marwan, you said about the phases of cache fill deduplication, can you write them down in issue 308? Start that discussion.
Yes, so I could write, sounds good. I'll just write about like the phases that we should kind of go through.
Cool.
Can you also share a link for etcd
Yeah,
distribution log? Yeah.
Oh, and one thing, another opinion is I think it'd be really cool for us to be able to support like a bunch of different deduplication strategies, not strategies, drivers, kind of like we do storage drivers. So we could plug in etcd or even in memory if you're running one instance.
Thanks, Marwan.
And then the Go client has like the distributed lock in it. So this one is just talking like generically. But if you use the Go client, then you can just talk to the master node and acquire a lock from it. And the cool thing about single flight as a concept is that we don't really need long-term persistence because everything is just temporary. So it's just acquire a lock and then download something, and downloading something shouldn't take more than a minute or two, and then remove that from the entire cluster. But we do need to set up an etcd or console or any of those really. That's just the one I'm familiar with. But you do need to set up a cluster, but it can potentially be a little bit easier than setting up an actual distributed like database.
Yeah.
So far we are saying that we don't have to say no to multiple replicas of the proxy for the MVP. Maybe we could say like it's okay to do, but we don't recommend it or something. And then the second
for sure.
Part, sorry, I cut everyone off. Go ahead.
No, we're just giving thumbs up.
Okay, cool. So the second part was for the MVP, at least we're going to say no to having federation, like to build support for federation or data sharding into the proxy. And then the third and final point was we're going to have to build at least deduplication support for a single running proxy for the MVP.
Yeah.
Cool. What else is there that I missed in there?
I think you got it all.
Oh, sorry, I had to mute. This microphone is right next to my super loud, crazy mechanical keyboard now, so I have to get like a stand for it. It's like I'm going to be a professional podcaster or something. All right, what else we got? How's life?
It's getting dark.
Good. I found some. Actually, I was talking with Rob too on Slack like 2 nights ago, and I found some stuff going on with testing, like local testing. That's what brought up the whole mage thing. That seems like it's hotly contested now. But for now, I have a PR up that's like I'm starting to write some tests for the proxy routes. And then I was like, oh, let me run them. And then it blew up because I was missing configs. So I went, Mikhail, I looked at your screencast and I tried to take a lot of those steps that you did where you were taking stuff out of the Travis YAML file. And I tried to script them. So I have a work in progress PR with like the start of what I'm trying to do there to make it easier to run tests locally.
Cool.
But the one thing that's tripping me up is that the Olympus and the proxy have two separate database schemas. And so like you can't run all the tests at once. And there's a second problem, which is that the proxy database tests all run concurrently. But I put an issue for this, I think. But sometimes, like, it's obviously possible for two tests to act on the same data, and then there would be a race condition and a flaky test. But since we're removing RDBMS support from the proxy, we don't have to worry so much about the proxy having the right database schema because there's not going to be database schemas anymore. But that second problem of like concurrent data access to the shared database, we might have to deal with that with Mongo and whatever others. But I'm going to just punt that for like another problem, another issue. Did any of that make sense to people? Or am I
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit on one of the issues that maybe, I don't know, Mikhail, if you remember which one, where we're talking about.
I don't know the number, but I remember, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, I ran through to the same issue for multiple reasons. So even if the tests pass, if you run the same test again, they don't pass because the database doesn't get cleaned up. So you have like not just an issue with concurrency, but then an issue with the fact that like the databases aren't cleaned up. So I've kind of, for a different project, I've gone through the same thing. And one thing that kind of worked, at least for that particular use case, is that each test gets two functions, one called clean and the other called acquire. And so for both of them, for every test, which ensures that every test is completely namespaced, right? It gets its own database collection, and then it gets its own clean slate of that collection. So you could run it in parallel, you can run it multiple times, because it always ensures that you get like a unique collection for that particular test every time, and that you call cleanup after you're done. We don't have to go that far, but at least we could just do cleanup for now, because I think that's what Mikhail suggested.
Cleanup with these settings from Buffalo, which limits the parallelism to 1. Should work.
Yeah, so cleanup with just saying like don't be parallel, that also totally works. But I have a question. Yeah, I actually remember watching the screencast a little bit. If we're removing RDBMS, do we need to do any of this migration stuff in the setup at all, or no?
We have to keep the migrations folder around because Buffalo build won't work without it, and we have to keep that file that like defines the DB and the DB like package global, but we don't have to try connecting to the database anymore. We obviously can take it out of the Docker Compose and take all the storage drivers away. So there's just like a few little bookkeeping things that ensures that Buffalo build can still run. Other than that, yeah, there's nothing.
Sounds good. So I'll try to find that issue. Yeah, it's called RDBMS test run in parallel. I believe that's it. I'll post it here. I'll post it on the channel. So this one, we could probably just rename it to say, ensure tests are like independent, ephemeral, or something like that. They can, I forgot the word, but we can probably rename this from RDBMS to just like saying tests should run all the time without having to have conflicts. Or maybe like just say particularly what we're trying to do, which is introduce a clean function to every storage test.
Yep.
No more intermittent failures, something like that. Okay. The good news is Buffalo's test suites give you setup and teardown per test and per suite. So we can probably lean pretty heavy on those. Mono is going to make tickets to investigate removing POP and using Buffalo Test Suite. Just the first one, Mono, because we already used Buffalo Test Suite a bunch anyway. Or was there something specific? Yes. We do use them for storage modules, but why don't we do this? For that 488 issue, I think you're probably right, Marwan. We should like rename it to do better setup and teardown or something, whatever. And then Manu, if you do, can you do some investigation and write down like what you think is the best way to do setup and teardown using test suites? Thank you. And I will, let me just change the title of that now. So do ensure storage tests can run in parallel without intermittent failures. Yeah. So yeah, I guess the goal is like overall, whatever we do, let's make it so storage tests can run without intermittent failures, preferably in parallel if we can make that happen, because then they'd be faster. Cool. What else? Other people want to chat about stuff? Jokes?
From my
All right. I think we're good then. See everyone on the interwebs.
With the Slack down.
Yes, with Slack down, yeah. All right. See you folks.
See you then.
Okay.